If you think the iPhone is no good for creating content, think again. Today, we're going to compare an iPhone versus a professional Sony camera and see how they stack up against each other. We're going to see how a $1,000 setup can compare against a $4,000 to $6,000 setup. So let's jump on in and start with a daylight comparison. Starting with some wide shots first. For this shot specifically, you could tell that the bottom part of those plants are a little blurred out because there's more depth on the camera, whereas the iPhone over here shows everything in focus. But if you don't put anything in the foreground, I think it's really hard to tell the difference between the camera and the iPhone. And if you're using the iPhone just for establishing shots or scenery, this is just perfect. So something to keep in mind for all shots, no matter what gear you're using, if you shoot around sunrise or sunset or overcast, that's when the outdoor lighting is going to be the best and you're going to really maximize what you're shooting. So right here, that's why all of these look very similar, because the lighting is really good. But as you make a shot tighter or subjects closer, you're going to really see a difference. Here, I wanted to get the background in focus and not the subjects. And as you can tell with the camera, they're blurred out, but with the iPhone, everything is in focus, which isn't necessarily a bad thing, but just don't expect your iPhone to give you that type of look. So this next one is a portrait shot. You could see how blurred out the background is here, and when we switch over to the iPhone, everything's very in focus, just like what we expected. But the one thing that I am impressed about is the color science. Shooting in log on the iPhone, you can actually color grade it and match it pretty well to your camera. Like if you're putting together a whole video and you're switching between like short clips that are like, maybe 2 or 3 seconds, they actually look very similar. So watch right here, right? These are 2 videos that I'm just gonna cut together. Very hard to tell the difference. The background is just like slightly more blurred and the colors are matching pretty well. Alright, now, so for tight shots and good lighting, this is where you're going to see the most obvious difference depending on how far away your background is, right? So here with the cups on a table, you don't see as much depth because the table is really close. But here, now we're holding something and we got some nature in the background. You can see a very big, obvious blur. And of course, aperture does matter. Now, this next one, we are by a pool. You don't really see anything in the background, maybe a little bit of movement, and bang, once you see the iPhone, you can see all that gunk in there and you see everything in focus. Now, for the moment we've all been waiting for and what everyone is asking for in the comments, that is the low light test. All right, so in this extremely low light condition, we have the FX3. We're using the dual native ISO at 12,800. There's a good amount of noise. And then here on the iPhone, it looks softer with less noise, but the image definitely doesn't look as good. I don't know what's going on in the iPhone, but if somebody knows, let me know in the comments. Okay, so now we're by the DJ booth. We have slightly more light here, so you can see a little more details on the clothing and the skin, but it's definitely very noisy. And then when we switch over to the FX3, this is kind of what I expect, right? It's still going to be dark, obviously, but it's not going to be as noisy. It's actually more usable. And over here on this walking shot, you're going to see a very similar result. They're both very dark. However, the iPhone looks a little messier. Obviously, on the camera, it should perform more if we're paying this much, and this one is known to be a good low light camera. And now in this next one, sorry, but I actually didn't record them at the same time, so I just found 2 somewhat similar clips. The angles are off, so maybe the lighting's a little off, but you could tell the iPhone, it's messy. And then here, even on the camera, there's a good amount of noise in certain areas, but overall, the image is much cleaner. Alright, so hopefully after seeing the comparisons, it gives you an idea of how good the iPhone really is. Obviously, the camera is better than the iPhone, but to spend $3,000 to $5,000 more dollars, I would expect it to be. If it wasn't, I would be a little concerned. However, if you're shooting wide or medium shots on the iPhone and you have good lighting, it can definitely hold its own. Now, when you shoot tight shots though, that's a totally different story. You could definitely see the difference in depth, like how much background blur there is. But if you did a whole video on iPhone and not show like the comparisons back to back like what we did, most people probably aren't going to be able to tell the difference. Now, we all know in the low light category, it definitely struggled, but it actually did better than what I was expecting. And you know how iPhones are. They upgrade every year and they do improve it little by little, so who knows, maybe one day it's actually going to be really good. Overall, I don't think the iPhone's going to replace a camera, but if you're just getting started or you have a small budget, it's definitely going to work, even for YouTube. And if you're doing it just for vertical content for social media, that is more than enough. For some of my projects, I even mix in some iPhone footage and no one can ever tell. And to me, I just like how easy it is to bring around your iPhone. It fits in your pocket and the footage comes out super stable without having to put any attachments on it. So if you're thinking about shooting content at some point and you only have a phone, that's totally fine. But just like always, let me know in the comments what you think. Is the iPhone good enough? Is it not good enough? Have you tried it on your own? Go ahead, leave it down there.